It's Chris. We're doing it again. It's November. Are you ready? The best games coming to retail month. And why, as always, you should not buy them. And if I'm wrong, you can still get them anyway, because in no way, shape, or form am I putting you to a contract or pen to paper or gun to head in that style of things, right? Reminds me of the old adage. They're like, we surveyed 100 people who played Russian roulette, and our results were that it's completely safe. Get the joke? Let's go. So first up, right? I'm going to eat some crow on this one because I didn't think it was actually going to be as well received. The two main video game IPs that were big ports, big names, 7 digits on crowdfunding, Slay the Spire, which we've talked about ad nauseum on the channel, but then Dead Cells, the roguelite style game, right? Die, get stronger, die, get stronger, die, get stronger until you make it to the boss, a la all of those style of games in the first place. And I said, I don't think these are going to be, and I'm wrong. And they're going for more than what they were worth on crowdfunding on the secondary market. So you can pick up at retail. However, unlike Slay the Spire, the real reason you shouldn't buy this one at retail, I mean, it's got an 8.3 rating. It's grindy, it's rote, it's repeat. It's not going to be as smooth. It's going to be more overhead than the video game. But none of those things are going to stop you from buying it, right? The thing that's going to stop you from buying it is there's exclusives that you're going to be missing out on the retail side of things that right now Scorpion Mosque has not made available or known that it's going to be available at some point in the future at all. Like, I think something along the lines of 2 additional characters and some weapons as well. So not the biggest make it or break it, not probably as far at the other end of things as the Blood Rage exclusives that are completely over the top game breaking in terms of abilities unbalanced, but enough to make you kind of go, well, because the retail edition is as much as the collector's edition was on crowdfunding. So price point is also poorer. So do you wait for Scorpion Mosque to come around with this one again? Which begs the question, right? As we just saw, literally, before me filming this, actually, CMON announced Cthulhu Death May Die Season 5, right? And so that is the big money-making question. If it made you this much money, if it is that well thought of, Slay the Spire, Dead Cells, are we going to see more of it? Even though it's not really as much maybe based on the games in the first place. Can you have creative license in that way, shape, or form? But if you're a gameplay completionist, you're probably better off buying someone else's copy from that aspect right now. And next up, we're hitting on the trends of the duos, right? Like I called it. This is my shot that I said earlier in the year. You're going to see the rise of the dual games, and we are seeing it across the board. And now Res Arcana is going that way. And it reminds me a little bit more of a Spirit Island vibe in the sense of Horizons of Spirit Island, because it's Res Arcana. And I would argue that I like playing Res Arcana with 2 people, 3 people max. But this is 2-player Res Arcana. It's more of like the King of Tokyo Origins, I guess. Actually, maybe that's a better comparison than Horizons, but it's similar in both accounts. Cheaper price point, compact travel edition, experience tailored for 2 players with a little bit more drafting and a little bit more control over which places of power you're going to have. So, I mean, Res Arcana is going to offer you double the content for less than double the price, and it's going to have more strategies, more cards, and the ability to play up with 4 players, which is for you, right? I don't think this is going to be Splendor to Splendor Duel, where you have a significantly different dynamic, mechanically speaking, while still using similar elements. I think this is going to be more Horizons and King of Tokyo Origins in that way. And then I'd just say, go pick up freaking Res Arcana. Just like I would say, instead of picking up Horizons of Spirit Island, just pick up Spirit Island. You can sort of, tiptoe your way into it and still not get overwhelmed. You don't need Horizons. Like, Horizons isn't Spirit Island Junior. It isn't like the Catan Junior, Ticket to Ride Junior, where it's not. And so that's where I'd say, pick up the other. Because then probably for the same price point, or if you're lucky enough to go after it in the secondary market, you could probably get in, well, an expansion with someone's bundle if you're really looking and getting a good deal. So pass, unless you're a completionist, probably from that aspect again. Then War of the Ring, the card game, Fire and Swords. All of a sudden, people started getting their pre-orders from Ares. because this one originally was actually looking like Q1, like January, February. And then all of a sudden, it just kind of came out of the blue. People started getting their shipping notices and all that. So it's all coming out now, giving you more. And did you want to play this War of the Ring card game up to 6 players? You can, but you won't. Do you want to play it with 4 players? You could, but you shouldn't. It's still 2 players. It's going to lengthen things. That's probably the biggest detriment, as this episodic path traveling, win the location depending on how and when you choose to push your resources or pull them in reserve style of things. It is still my preferred War of the Ring game. You can't get the other War of the Ring game played. It's a status symbol. This one is actually playable. I'm just kidding. You know, rubbing salt in the wound, folks. It's like when I called, you know, all of the other things like Clans of Caledonia the best dry Euro of the year. Anyway, but I'm getting myself in trouble and getting segued, squirrel. And that's a conundrum here is, have you played the other game enough to get a meta? Do you do like a little bit of construction with this? It's offering just more variety. It's arguably the better expansion to get of the 2 of them, but is it actually going to aid in getting it played? Is it going to aid in those manners, easy to play, customizable, more accessible, or is it just going to add a little bit more length? And that's my fear, is it's going to add length. It's going to make it more like its predecessor, which is going to make it less tolerable. Twilight of the Republic, Star Wars Unlimited, right? The next of the Star Wars Unlimitedies. And truth be told, it's doing fantastic. It's still underprinting, although they're catching up with things, and people are really still digging it. Tournament scene is hot. Secondary market is not quite as hot as it was, but that's probably a lot of the speculation, is that it's a TCG and people are still weighing that out. And are you one of those people? Because I'd make the argument right now, you should never buy, as someone who did it, that style of things at the retail in the boxes and the bundles unless you are a reseller. Because the by far and away best thing you could probably do is that you don't need a lot of the rares. You don't need a lot of the super uncommon, legendary, foil, whatevers, right? The showcase cards. You can typically buy a set of commons and uncommons on the secondary market for like $20 to $40, depending on what set it is and how cheap people are willing to sell them, which is usually like 3 of each of them for, you know, less than the cost of a booster box, which isn't going to get you half of that. So that's an amazing deal. So somewhere between $60 and $80, you could probably get 3 sets of every common and uncommon, and you could piecemeal it along the way and get a whole lot more for a lot less in that regard. So there's really no incentive unless you just absolutely have the dopaminergic rush that you need to get from opening those packs, which is always a lose-lose combination unless you really strike it out rich. And I am never one of those people. So give that a thought, but also just buy somebody else's. Then I'm having my review up either shortly before this or shortly after this. One of the best small box games of the year, Castle Combo from Pandasaurus. And I can't recommend this one. Pause for dramatic effect, because if you're not a fan of this, isn't going to change your mind. It's fantastic for what it is, right? You've got the 3x3 grid that you are laying things out in. You're drafting these cards from a top row, bottom row, a little bit of mitigation, multiple ways of point scoring, each card being unique, but it's totally and utterly chaotically random. And if that gives you any fit whatsoever, this game is going to frustrate more than it is going to find enjoyable. For me, it's a lesson in, wow, this is just crazy fun. I like making applesauce out of apples. A lot of other people are going to look at this and go, nope, I don't have enough control. I'm grasping at my dry Euro straws and want more of that. And this is going to have none of it. And you are going to be left hating yourself for the 20 minutes that it takes to play. But it's clever. It's unique. It's completely almost asymmetric with all the different cards. And it's a heck of a lot of fun. I'm not sure I'd play it if you want to play more than 3 players, though. It really does have a little bit more downtime there. So you can get it, but you can also try it out, but it's not going to change your mind for sure if that doesn't appeal to you in the first place. Now we're going to go right back to Ares though, because Ares has another big release coming out this month, and it's called Altay, the Dawn of Civ, or Civilization, because what you're doing here is a mix of area control and deck building, sort of like Era. Remember that game where you're kind of grid building and city building? Only now imagine you were doing that with slight asymmetry and more of a deck building aspect, controlling one of 4 different factions with their own unique cards, trying to get achievements using special cards that are permanently added, granting more capabilities or points, however you can do it. territorial expansion, technological development, and long-lasting memories of your civilization's achievements. It's a big question mark, right? Deck building, a little bit of area control, a little bit of 4X there as a Civ straightforward game. Is that combination going to work for you? It's a little bit out there, right? There's not enough content to know whether or not it's probably for you or where the opinion's going to be, say, 6 months from now. But it's doing something unique. As I always say, unique, though, is scary. Unique is mind-burning, great exercise in something you probably shouldn't go after. Because let somebody else experiment with their money and you buy it off of someone else's Board Game Geek auction because they didn't like it. And now you know that you like it from that aspect. So Ares has that going hand in hand. Then, are you familiar with Brandon Sanderson? Because his series, Mistborn, actually just is releasing a deck building game. And this is in the lines of more of the Invincible deck building game that Direwolf did this year. Only this is Brotherwise bringing this to us as sort of more of a Star Realms vibe with some character, slight asymmetry, a little bit of a market, and a little bit of victory variety of what they're saying is true based on how this is going to be different. But this is a little bit more multiplayer solitaire, they say, as well, per a lot of the comments that are out there. There's solo, there's co-op, there's 1 versus 1. But a couple of the early impressions are like, you know, if you really love the series that this is based on, Mistborn, in his Cosmere sort of cosmic universe that spans all of his books, it's probably going to be a pretty good thematic fit. But if you're not as enamored with that or you have no affiliation to it, well, wait until it gets an expansion or two to make sure it has some legs under it, or it's not just a one-off based off an IP to get a little bit of this on the side. Right? Which is always fascinating to me because his crowdfunding campaigns for the book stuff are the biggest, literally the biggest on crowdfunding ever. Ever. And yet this one just kind of gets thrown out there and I kind of go, you know, that's cool and all, but it makes me wonder if it is a little bit of that. You know, again, not because Brotherwise, nothing against them, but just like, you know, in his universe of merchandise, board games are here rather than everything else. So that's just what it gets me the feeling of. And again, not from a Brotherwise aspect, quality stuff from them, but if they can't go anywhere with it, or their hands are tied, or there's nothing to give it more longevity, I'm looking at you, even like Star Wars deck building from FFG. Yeah, standalone expansion that copies the same thing, gives a slight thematic difference, but doesn't add anything as a real value of why you should ever own both. That's where I wonder with this. And so, again, not a bad game, but we've seen several of these other deck builders, speaking of FFG, had 1 or 2 of them in the past, like 5 years, where they got a base game and they were ripe for expansions. They needed something. They could build on it tremendously. And just like that, absolutely nothing, right? So that's my fear with this one as a whole. So we'll see where it goes. Then Osprey. Oh, man, this one has, you know, better than Undaunted written all over it to me. Battalion, War of the Ancients. Order your armies, epic battles, ancient history related. And 2 to 4 player, you know, I prefer 2 player on these games. I don't like the back and forth, right? We just did Dice Throne the other night, and it was me and my wife versus the 2 boys. That's a whole nother story, but it's just, you know, convoluted King of the Hill. And it's okay, but it's not my preferred in these sort of head-to-head games. 4 playable historic factions, strengths and weaknesses, enemy faction-specific tactics to outmaneuver. The big question mark, though, with this one is, well, it's a war game, right? It's a tile-based war game. 144 tiles, 70 cards. At the time of me filming this, John Gets Games is the only one that has content out there. Although on the forums, they say there will be plenty soon because their original street date is the 21st of this month. So I would expect plethoras of plethoras, and we'll see. But I like the idea of a tile-based war game, but the question I have for myself personally with this one is, as not a usual war game fan, if it's using tiles, is it going to convert me, or is it just not going to appeal to me, even though the aesthetic and the mechanical approach is more of what I'm used to? And this has sort of weight all over it, especially when you compare it to the more recent Undaunted Callisto 2200, which is getting all the rave and all the attention. This one's kind of flown completely under the radar because it's a little bit of a question mark. If you want something solid in that realm, the Undaunteds are proven. The Undaunteds are available now. The Undaunteds, you can look up tons and tons of content, even with Callisto at this point, and know what you're getting into. But you're getting into a little bit more of a rules war game style. And like I said, is that going to convert you? You know, we always go, oh, this is the one that's going to fill my heart. This is the one that's going to make me like this mechanic. And again, the odds, unfortunately, in this case, just like most cases, are not in your favor. Then, speaking of odds not in your favor, that has nothing to do with what we're talking about now with the next game, but it is Endeavor Deep Sea, just delivering to backers from Burnt Island, Grand Gamers, all of the combination of people in terms of putting it out. And we are going to see, well, how do people really like it? Don't listen to me. This is a fantastic game. This may be on my top 10 of the year. And I loved it when it went to crowdfunding. I said on my video, well, I'm paraphrasing myself probably, but I said on that video, in case you didn't watch it, I said this is going to be one of the sleeper hits when it comes out. People are really going to freaking like this. Yeah, it's not perfect. Yeah, it's not going to be, you know, as dynamic of a hard, crunchy Euro worker placement style resource management vibe that you want. It's only a 2.8 on Board Game Geek. But that's perfect for me. That is just the heaviness greatly in my sweet spot. And if I can play it competitive as well as cooperative, and I can play it in an hour to an hour and a half, that's fantastic. I guess the question you have to ask yourself is, should you really pick it up at retail though? No, you should go get the deluxe version because they have a better insert. Just kidding. Player mats that are recessed, screen printed meeples, and 3 mini expansions. Because if you're going into this saying, I'm really going to like this game, Chris, you're going to want the mini expansions. You are. And I'm saying that as someone who hasn't played the mini expansions yet. I have my copy sitting on my counter. But if it's anything like some of the other games I've played recently, more like the Cascadia Rollings, if you will, that little mini expansion oftentimes are really, really, I don't want to say necessary, but giving a just more element that isn't overwhelmingly more, especially when it's a little mini modular expansions from that aspect. So don't buy it at retail. Go buy somebody's secondary market. Go trade for it. So we're going halvesies there with that one, but splitting hairs, I know. Then MATRX GIPF. I've been waiting months for this. Actually, probably over a year since they first announced it. And Chris Berm, give me something freaking sweet. Punkt, Von, Zertz, Yinch, Tmask. I wish Tsar was in there as well, but if you're giving me more Yinch and Zertz alone right there, I am more than happy. More than happy. Zertz, one of my most played abstract game, period. Yinch, I thought it was the bee's knees until I played Tsar. But you're giving me more options. However, you are not me. You don't love abstracts. This is not going to be the thing that's going to turn any of those abstracts from the GIPF series that I just mentioned. In case you're not familiar with the GIPF series, Chris Berm's, piece de resistance, the absolute masterclass of abstract games. If you're going to start anywhere, if you want to learn abstract games or you want to become more interested in it, you pick up like Tsar or Zertz as just an intro level. I'm horrible at games. Zertz is a great one, and Tsar is the best, and Yinch is going to be too mind-burningly difficult to wrap your mind around because I lose every single game of it that I've ever played. But I love it nonetheless. But this isn't going to change your mind. This isn't going to convert you to an abstract lover. You got to go play a couple of those and not do this one. Go get Hive, go get Tak, go get Shobu, go get one of those that is your gateway into these, and then find out whether you like that themeless, dry Euro aspect. Get myself in trouble when I say that. If you love those, then you'll love these, and you can always pick this one up later. Then at the time of me filming this, it says supposed to be released this month, although Nanox Games, in combination with DLP Games, is still working on the distribution because there's a delay in the Evenfall Crystal Path expansion. That is super exciting because I just played it last month, and it was a fantastic game. I'm horrible at it. I'm absolutely horrible at it. Absolutely and utterly scored very poorly, but I enjoyed it, and I said, wow, I can see why it was on people's top 10 lists from last year. And again, it's probably not going to change your feelings on Evenfall as a slightly heavier engine build. There's a lot going on in there. You know, it's not as straightforward, and that's going to appeal, but it's also going to make it harder to get to the table for repeated play, even though the variability is there. This is going to give you so much more variability with 2 new clans, a new path, and new rituals. Everything that you need, a new form of magic, and it's modular. So with any expansion, the answer is, do I need it? Well, not really, besides cracking my neck there in the middle of the video. And that stays true with this one, right? This isn't going to change your mind. This isn't going to give you anything that necessarily wasn't there in the first place. This is not going to make a good game better for you if it wasn't for you in the first place, right? I talked about either right before this or right after this Castle Combo, Agent Avenue, both tremendously amazing, great small box games. But if they're not for you, there is absolutely none of my gushing that is going to change them for you if you do not like the mechanics that you are presented with. So if this engine build style of difference with Evenfall wasn't for you, giving you more modularity and just more junk to choose from as it throws everything in the kitchen sink at the wall in terms of that isn't going to be for you. But if it is, it's probably going to make a great game even more in that way. But again, expansions don't change your opinions on the base game almost exclusively, which is why you don't buy this in hopium amounts in order to think that somehow things are going to be different in that regard. Then, Video Game Champions, supposed to be out any time from Arcane Wonders as well. Early 90s, 16-bit video game battling? Oh yeah, you know Liege is all over that. Hand management, set collection, lining up your chips on an action grid, corresponding action effects based on columns or lines that they're fulfilling. It's a port. It's coming in, and Arcane is distributing it more widely, especially in North America. Now, interestingly enough, the weight is very similar to Deep Sea Endeavor, even though I'm going to make the argument this seems a lot lighter. It has the theme, but it's going to be another in the ubiquitous slog of mid-weight, mid-style Euro resource management set collection-esque vibes. Is the theme going to be a make it or break it for you? You know, I've got Ironwood sitting right here next to me as another one that I feel like the theme really adds to it. I don't say that very often about games in that regard, but that really did. And I think that this game is going to have some of that for you. Or we're running into like what No Pun Included said, where, you know, how do you differentiate between all of these that are sort of out there and slightly twist mechanic wise? Well, you start to go for the themes that appeal to you versus the ones that don't. And then, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It just means that some of these are, even though they're mechanically, weight wise, screaming what you're enjoying, it may fall completely flat too. And the rhyme and reason about which one is going to do that and which one isn't, as he sort of ends up miming on his channel for some reason. It's my video, I can do what I want. It's gonna be a big question mark. And how many times are you willing to question mark it, especially when this is retail, right? Especially when this is retail. There's no FOMO here. There's no grass is greener. Get your extra expansion or exclusives or promos or whatever else that you can, you know, have or not have if you get it on crowdfunding. So wait 6 months. Wait 6 months and see where this one ends up. Because even though it's on, I believe this is one of the Dice Tower Essentials, if I'm recalling correctly, they're still not for everybody either. No matter who says it's a great game, it has to be a great game for you. Never forget that in this video. Then a crowdfunding one I've actually had on my radar since the campaign, actually. Kavango. Build, protect your nature reserve. Mazaza Games, sort of like almost if Arc Nova was completely card driven as you're drafting them and trying to research 160 completely unique species. And this is going to be very similar to Endeavor in the sense that if you didn't back it on crowdfunding, you're missing the extra animeeples, which aren't going to be too big a deal, but you're missing like 3 at least little mini expansions and some little bit of gameplay content with new animals, 5 new animals going along in addition with this. So this one has sort of try before you buy all over it, because the retail price is around $40 right now at the time of me filming this, but the deluxe pledges are going for nearly $100. So is that worth it for you? Mini expansion wise, double the price of the game. Now there's some deluxeifications there. There's some bags, some player boards, some linen, whatever finishes, all that sort of crap that goes along with it always. As a gameplay perfectionist, that's the question that I have to ask myself. How much are those little extras worth? And are they going to be coming out separately in addition at a later point? Probably why I'd say wait and see, because you can buy the base game right now. You can't buy the mini expansions. So try somebody else's copy if you can find one in that way. Trade for it if you have to. But I've seen this happen plenty of times. I have not had to experience it too many times myself, thankfully, where you buy the game, you love it, you can't get those extras, then you buy the deluxe version and try and sell your regular version. And that's a lot of hassle. And that's how people end up with extra copies of games in their collection. And you don't want to be one of those people, do you? The cons for people who do have it and have played it at this point, is it exceptional? Is it spectacular enough? I chuckled because I was just thinking about Spectacular and Arc Nova and the comparisons between all three of these and the mechanical differences, because they're all kind of grid habitat building in that vague shape, sense, and form. But there's luck involved, because you need certain icons to get certain goals, and you just, can't get them when you want them. And so how big of a drafting deck in that Arc Nova-esque vibe is going to behoove you, or how much is that just going to frustrate you from those aspects? All in all, though, 350 ratings, but 8.2 so far. So the people that got it like it. Crowdfunding inflation, who knows? But that's why you wait and see, and you pick up a copy on the secondary market. Inventors of South Tigris is coming to retail this month. Garfill, the last in the trilogy. And the thing I'll say is, don't buy it just because you have the other two in the trilogy. Check out the actual mechanistic gameplay that is going along with this, because arguably this is the heaviest of all three. So if the other two, Scholars and Wayfarers, were heavy enough or bordering on that edge already, this one could easily tip you over the edge. So that'd be my biggest, okay, just because you have the others, don't completion it, right? We were just talking about this on crowdfunding when the Stephen Feld collection came out, the Stephen Feld collection, 9 and 10. And you can get matching numbers for your 9th and 10th games, each that cost you like $100 or $130. And oh man, don't be one of those people. So that'd be the thing here, right? Because invariably, I see this with any of these, similarities, right? It's sort of, I'm in for a penny, I'm in for a pound. I want the matching set of them. I want all of the roots or the dice thrones to have all of the mini. You know what I'm saying, right? I gotta have it, not because I'm gonna like this gameplay, but also, are you gonna like this gameplay better than the other two? Which one is this gonna push out? Invariably, if you have that many of them, it very well might. Are you willing to risk that? I don't know enough, mechanically speaking. This is not my forte. Those are the issues that I think through when I see this in the first place. Similarly, crowdfunded, but now retail, Red Raven's variant is what they're calling it, of Islebound Emerald Edition. And they make a very clear point, just like Garfield did with their Shipwrights, or whichever one that was, they got sort of the Redux version as well. I'm blanking on it. But this is a variant of that, saying it's a special edition. Book resource replaces it with emeralds. Emeralds have different uses, collect different management of these resources in the first place. Well, again, as you're collecting treasure, hiring your crew on your boat, going across the archipelago, trying to, befriend islands and towns and everyone along the way. If you conquer them, you get free actions. You can use these emeralds now and this difference to build building cards and get special abilities. So it's a better edition, but the previous expansion isn't compatible with this version. So is it a good jumping in point? Is it going to be different enough from the previous Islebound? Or if you like the previous Islebound with the Metropolis expansion, how does this compare? And it's too early to tell. 36 ratings at the time of me doing this. That is not enough for you to probably get any sense of things whatsoever. And that's the question with a lot of these 2.0 versions, right? We're going to see it very soon in crowdfunding as well this month with Vestige, the re-implementation of Vindication. We're going to see it a little bit next year, as I was just looking at some of the stuff I'm getting interested to talk about for 2025 with the Dune Imperium Uprising Bloodlines expansion. How, where does it fit? Do you need it? That's what this begs as a game that, would you say, needed a second edition in the first place? I don't know, but food for thought. Last up, I was actually planning on talking about the Veil of Eternity expansion and how excited I am for that. That's gotten delayed at least till December, it looks like, through Renegade Game Studios' website. And we're just going to have to wait to see how much that can bring and upgrade Veil of Eternity. But we're going to go slightly sideways here because it brings up another interesting point. The Magneto card pack for Marvel Champions, which I love. It's got the cool looking Magneto, not the old school purple one. So I love the new outfit and uniform from more of the comics more recently. And it really brings up the question then with this is, when are we going to see, and I don't know at the time of me filming this if they've actually released a date, but the next big box expansion is going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which I'm terribly unexcited about. But I want to know, and I'd like to see what else it can do, because again, I think truthfully and in a very positive way, that game has, well, exceeded expectations and outlived what a lot of people were really concerned about in the first place. So we'll see. But Marvel Champions in general, you buy people's off the secondary market for bundles. You never try and sell, though, your whole bundle. You're never going to get anywhere near the value. So you got to be very careful going into the LCGs, right? Like, people are like, I spent $500, and you're going to be lucky if you get $200. So that's why you don't buy it in the first place. You buy somebody's bundle as a way to get in from a better aspect. I'd a la carte this later, or buy somebody's bundle with this one. So even if you're a Magneto lover like I am, I'll wait 6 months and buy it with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver and Sinister Motives expansion and be very happy that I paid probably half the price that they did. So there you go. That's everything. Long November list, and always fun to talk about why you should and both shouldn't get these games. So there you go. Let me know what you think. Comments, questions, concerns down below. You know what to do. And let me know if I miss anything, probably. But hopefully I didn't screw too much up along the way. Peace out. Stay classy. Have a great freaking fantastic day.